本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It is Friday, July 9th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 408. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined today by Patrick Klepek.
Blowing me away. Like, you know, the was it a THX commercial or whatever, where the guy's sitting in the chair, and it's like, whoa, Austin blaring me away with that intro.
I'm trying to bring high energy back because I don't have any. And so if I start with high energy, it'll carry forward a little bit. Also joining me, Cado is here.
Yeah, let's go.
All right,
okay.
All you memers out there, I need you to take the intro to this podcast and match it up with that THX commercial and put a Photoshop of my face on it.
Of your face, yeah.
Blow me away.
We're back.
Fuck.
How's it going, everybody? We had last episode I did was Monday. So actually, did I just give the wrong number? I said 408. I should have said 409.
Does Rob update it? I don't know. Can we blame this on Rob?
It's
Rob.
Wait, Monday? There wasn't a Monday pod.
It. Oh, there's no Monday pod.
Correct.
You're right.
That was a Friday
we were
pod.
off.
Yeah,
so I didn't miss it. Did I miss the Friday pod last week?
You
Yes.
did, yes.
I did.
You were on a train.
I was on a bus.
Yeah,
I didn't do any train. I wish there was a train that ran from New York to Atlantic City.
There isn't?
Every time there is one, it fails. No one takes it because Atlantic City
right.
is dying because it's being used
even just
only
like as like a stop along the way to something else. I don't know.
No, because that route is Philadelphia. The route south into the southern states, like Maryland and whatnot, is through Philly. It goes Philly and then down.
The way you said Maryland and whatnot was...
Yeah. There are parts of... Let me tell you something about Maryland. There are parts of Maryland that are the South.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So...
yeah, there are.
I mean, that's true about New York, too. That's true about Canada. I've been in parts of Canada and been like, oh, I'm in Alabama now. I see. Let me tell you, I've seen Confederate flags.
Lick your finger, put it to the air.
Oh, 100%.
There's a little white supremacy around
There's a
here.
little bit of white supremacy rolling around here.
Oh, no.
God. Anyway, not that the South is just white supremacy, to be clear, blah, blah, blah. You know this. We have fans in the South. I have family in the South.
You can't
I
always
was
pick where
just
you live.
in the South.
Yes.
It's not really the South. Florida doesn't count as the South in any...
Florida's complicated.
Florida's got some South in it.
It
Florida's
does.
got the South in it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Little bit. Sections
Florida is both
of it.
in the South and has South in it, but I don't know that it's...
Florida
It also has
in
a place
the
called
South.
South Florida,
Right, yes.
which is not necessarily the South, but
No.
Right. It's complicated. Anyway, that means I was in Jersey. I was in South Jersey, which is actually not the part of Jersey I was in does not have shades of the South. Though if you go west from where I was by like 20, 30 miles, you do get to Vineland, New Jersey, which was the headquarters of the KKK for a little while there.
all right.
So,
just a little here on our guided tour.
Here's a guided tour. That's no good.
Welcome to Austin Walker's That's No Good tour.
That's no good. But I was on a trip, which means, the stuff that I have to bring to bear today is a lot of Switch stuff. And I have the feeling that is also just generally true from looking at this list of games y'all sent me.
Yeah, very clearly we knew that out of nowhere Nintendo was going to stealth drop a 7 a.m. announcement of a highly disappointing new Switch model that goes completely contrary to all the rumors and reporting that probably came from the supply chain.
Right. Yes. The rumors I expect to be wrong every time. Fully wrong every time.
Let's get into it. I'm gonna table this. The short version I will say is it looks like largely the data miners were right and the quote-unquote reporters were wrong, is basically. So we can get there. We can unpack that.
Swinging. Wait, you don't want to just jump into it at this point? Because I feel like...
I guess we can.
I feel like with that energy, we gotta keep that same energy at this point. I don't want to take a break and you come back less spicy.
That's true. I mean, it is... So, what does it mean to... Like, there's layers, right? I think...
Also, maybe you can provide a little bit of insight into what goes into this sort of...
Well, let's set up to where... Let's get to where we got... How do we get to where we got to?
Yes.
the Switch has been out for.
Really quick. Wait, what's the news item so that everyone's on the same page? Because some people may not have
There's
seen
a brand new Switch with an OLED screen that has I believe the physical screen size is like only slightly bigger, but there's less bezel, so you're getting like more real estate. It's kind of how you've seen like the iPads and stuff over time. Like their shape may not change as much, but like they reduce the bezel, so you get more display. And so we're
going from an LCD. Yes. Was it the LCD display previously, and now it's an OLED display?
Yeah, which is like better blacks, like better colors. Go watch a Digital Foundry video, but like it looks nicer. That's what all your phones and tablets have, and it's what like most devices have moved to in the last 5 years as OLED became more affordable.
Remember plasma? Just a little side note. Remember when plasma screen TVs were a thing?
Don't people still swear by those? Right? Like they don't want to give them up.
Because they look so good.
Because they don't make plasmas anymore, right?
Yeah, because they don't. They're very expensive, I believe. This is not.
They have like hella burn-in issues, but if you maintain it otherwise, it looks great.
I feel like the Brad and Will made a tech pod should do a plasma screen episode. Maybe they did and I missed it. But talk to me about plasma screen.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
Put a plasma screen on a Switch,
please. Someone do it. Anyway,
and
other stuff that's on that, it's like a
kickstand that goes all the way across the back, because who among us has not took their Switch on an airplane for the first time, put the Switch up on the kickstand, not because it made sense ergonomically or for how I wanted to play, but this is new and I want to use the new features. And then you just watch that kickstand snap off and disappear underneath an airplane seat, never to be found again. That's what happened to me.
Yeah, that thing will disconnect immediately.
Who uses their Switch in a kickstand capacity? People don't do that. They just do it in promo videos. I know that some people do it. I knew
some people do it. Maybe I'll do it if I believed it worked and it wouldn't break.
I guess there's not many instances. I like the fact that
I used it the first time I had this. I was hanging out with a friend.
Sure, let's play Mario
Kart. And this is when the only thing I had for the system was Breath of the Wild. I was like, you gotta see the fucking Breath of the Wild shit. And I set it up on our diner table like a TV.
I see that.
Yeah.
And that was fun. Anyway, Ethernet port on the built in to the dock.
Well, I believe sacrificing the USB 3 the input back there, but you still get two USB 2s
on the outside.
Front.
You'll be fine.
Probably. And that's
audio, some sort of better sound,
speakers. No. Well, just better output of the speakers. There's not as
not
far as we know.
Chip. There's not they put that Genesis chip in there. That first one.
You cannot use your wireless headphones on this. That is still. I still. Oh shoot, where is it? Do I have it?
You have a dongle?
Yeah, I don't have my.
He's looking around the room.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up later. It's excellent. They sent it to me. Like
who's they? Is it Nintendo?
I don't know. No, it's a third. I'm gonna look it up, but I'm not gonna sit here. I can't tell you to even look it up because then you're gonna look at like I'll find it later. But this is what people have had to do. You can use your your AirPods on your Switch. You just got to buy a $50 dongle. Gotcha. Anyway, it is not so leading up to this moment. I'd say about a month ahead of the quote unquote E3, like that period. And Nintendo is one of those companies that institutionally just seems to love E3, and so there was a lot of speculation that they would announce a new Switch because there had been. So folks that data mine firmware updates for the Switch had found evidence of a new model that had different specs. This is not something exclusive to the Switch. If you go and read people who are data mining like iOS updates or Android updates, it is frequent to find like evidence of upcoming hardware and details about that hardware by mining like early releases or updated releases of firmware and things like that. Yes, the Genki Audio Bluetooth 5.1 adapter for Nintendo Switch is the one I use.
Okay.
It's awesome. Works with your AirPods just fine. Can switch between the devices. It doesn't have any notable
it connects
latency.
To the Switch directly.
Yeah.
Nice. I see.
Yeah. It's great. I use it on using airplanes with an AirPod Pro noise cancellation feature.
Sure.
Delicious. And so, we're coming up on the Nintendo Switch launch lines up with the 5th anniversary of Waypoint. So we're coming up right on the 5th anniversary of the launch of the Switch, which we've had a Switch Lite, a smaller, more plasticky, like feels like you can drop the Switch that cannot dock.
Yeah. And we got like a refresh where like a battery change happened, right?
Yeah, the battery got slightly better. And so it seemed like we were at an opportune time, probably not for a Switch 2, because the Switch has just been so enormously successful.
Yeah.
It gets cheaper and cheaper to manufacture. Nintendo, even before these worldwide chip shortages that have been a mash of COVID and cryptocurrency bullshit, they were struggling to, it didn't feel like it was Nintendo being Nintendo. We can't make enough of, or artificial scarcity. It's like quite literally like they just can't make enough of them. And so, but it still seemed like an opportune time for them to sell like a higher end model with this lower end model that gets cheaper and cheaper. And, they can hit up tens of millions of us that would just be happy for like a slightly better Switch, sort of like the new 3DS.
For good reason, as we'll come to talk about throughout the rest of this
several
episode.
of the games we're going to get through at the rest of this podcast will collide with a bunch of people who love their Switch.
Breath of the Wild, a launch title that ran like shit. Like the Master Sword sequence, all the Korok Forest stuff was rough. And so like every year there are games I play on the Switch where I go, damn, I wish this thing had a little bit more.
Did that run better on the Wii U though?
Yes, I believe that's correct. I believe the Wii U version, maybe ran better. So maybe they pushed too far with the fog. I don't know.
Because by all accounts, that was a Wii U game that just became a Switch
Though
game.
Also, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that section also ran bad on the Switch. Or on the Wii U. I don't want to be definitive.
Badmouth.
Yeah, at this point, I've seen so much glorious PC Breath of the Wild footage of people running it on emulators that that's the footage that comes to mind when I think the best Breath of the Wild has ever looked. People should just go look up how good that game
It's gorgeous.
Looks. It's unbelievable.
And so sort of fueling this natural part of the evolution, despite Nintendo being slow. The Switch games really starting, including Nintendo games. You have one of Nintendo's most recent releases, Bowser's Fury, being 30 FPS in handheld mode, 60 FPS in docked mode, like showing that they themselves are starting to brush up against the limits of their own hardware and having to find different ways of handling that. There was reporting for some data miners who discovered there was a different model, and that seemed to suggest and line up with there being some spec differences, including a dock that would be capable of 4K output. I didn't brush up exactly on everything about the data miners before I got to this segment, but that is like the long and short of it, that there was evidence of a different model, of potentially different models, but they're only trying to glean what they can glean from, stuff that is littered in the firmware. It's not like it says necessarily Switch 2, here's what to expect.
Right.
But there was evidence that Nintendo was playing around with another Switch model. That then lined up with a number of credible reports from multiple outlets. I forget the order. I believe there were people saying expect an updated Switch in the near future before the Bloomberg report, which is really the one that sort of solidified it for myself and a lot of people that maybe this was happening. There were rumblings from quote unquote insiders, which that's a whole separate discussion. Let's not get into it. The insiders are not the Jeff Grubbs, Jason Schreiers of the world. These are folks in fan communities that frequently do know people or know people that know people and get access to information that can sometimes be credible depending on, the way the wind is turning and what those sources have access to.
One of the biggest, I would say the two biggest differences between what you see from people, quote unquote, insiders and historically trustworthy, reporting is one, a lot of fans who have insider connections will, publish a forum post with vague details that they are themselves jumping to some conclusion based on something they've been told. And more importantly, too, they're basing it off of like a single person they know who has told them something, and maybe that person has misunderstood something. A well-reported version of this story. When I think about like when we were both doing the PS4 Pro reporting, right? You were still at Kotaku, I was a Giant Bomb. We both presumably had multiple contacts. Right. I don't know. I'm guessing for you because I've worked with you for years and believe that is how you do your reporting from firsthand experience. You have multiple sources who verify that, and maybe a key source who gives you the juice who's like, oh shit.
And then you just need other people to nod at it and go, yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
that this looks that sounds right. You don't show them too much, but they confirm it independently.
Yeah.
And also you often end up with evidence, not just someone who says a thing, but a piece of paper. Something
an email,
that you can look at.
An like
email,
a memo,
a spec sheet. Video sometimes. Like there's
but even proper, quote unquote reporters who like myself who identify that way and sort of hold themselves to that sort of standard. You have different layers of sources. Like, for example, I can say, I've told you privately a number of things I know about Nintendo, right?
Yes.
That I cannot report because in the best way that I can describe it, like the way that information comes to me is like a person who knows a person who knows a bunch of other people. And so none of it's firsthand. Like it's not a person that works at Nintendo, but it's a person that like ends up in an orbit of information. So I can't report it because I have nowhere to take that information to. Yep. It's like, I know it's true. If I got on Twitter and said, this is happening, it would happen. But I can't because the standard I hold myself to towards publishing. Whereas frequently with insiders, that is often what is the case, is like you have a vector into somebody that maybe knows someone, and so the information gets kind of mushy and lost and is not always anyway, there's just a lot of smoke that's suggested between like legitimate reporters who seem to be indicating that it sounds like something's coming, then Bloomberg's Asian team drops a report that says basically, like Nintendo is working on prepping an announcement for a new Switch model that will have a number of like fan requested features. It is not a Switch 2, but it'll have a dock that outputs at 4K. It will have a slightly better processor. It will have support for DLSS. Essentially, as we talked about before, a way for you to, for example, to not display graphics in native 4K, but to put them in 4K using AI algorithms. Basically, your shit looks nicer and at higher resolutions without requiring the GPU and CPU power to pull it off natively. And that seems to be the future of where graphics tech is going, is not native 4K, but getting close enough and tricking it with algorithms. And that was the idea that that's a solution for the Switch makes a ton of sense for low cost, cheap hardware that will try and make it look better through essentially magic. Like really, like the first time you watch a video explaining and looking at how DLSS works, it really just seems like, oh, they just turned a knob up, and they didn't have to, put a giant new graphics card in there. But you need new hardware to make that work. And that seemed, the Bloom report said that was coming soon. It might be announced ahead of E3, so that developers could start. They dated
it at 2021. They said a new 2021 Switch model.
Yep, and that it might be shown before E3, in the way that Nintendo frequently stealth drops things without like a bunch of fanfare to let developers show off their games at E3 ahead of the Nintendo Direct, which was going to be happening like later in the E3 schedule. So that kind of set the table of expectations for what was going to happen. And then E3, nothing happens pre-E3, nothing happens at E3, nothing happens after E3. And then a couple days ago, in the morning, like I got a ping from Emmanuel. It's like, hey, you up? I was like, well, I am, but I'm like dropping off my kids at daycare. He's like, I got it. All right, I'm going to write this blog up of this new Nintendo Switch model. And I was like, excuse me? Like, Elizabeth, my youngest, I'm on the second daycare drop off. And I was like, Elizabeth, hold on. Daddy needs to see what's up with this new Switch model. Here's a cracker. And yeah, what we get is this like very modest upgrade in which the Eternals are more or less the same. The display is a little better. It's $50 more, which is something we should have pointed out earlier. And I would say the response, both from myself and a lot of people, was like some real, even despite decades of historic disappointment with how Nintendo operates and trying to have conservative estimates for their relationship with technology and hardware. I think a real profound sense of disappointment that what we're going to get this year in October is essentially a Switch that, a lot of people who own one will buy one, but really it's just meant to be like a higher end model for people who are buying one for the first time. And it's like, oh yeah, I'd like the nicer screen. That seems cool. I'm already spending $300. I'll spend $50 more. And that's kind of where we're at. It does not preclude a Switch Pro or the new Switch coming out next year. They could do that. It would not shock me if that was announced next summer or something like that. But by announcing this, they've certainly changed the timetable on that. And I think the way that ties into a bunch of things we're going to talk about is that the Switch is my favorite console. Like, I love it. Like, PR people know to just not even send me the other console. They put it on the bottom. They're like, hey, here's a Switch code. If you'd like another one for you or your team, like, let us know. Because I always request it because it fits into my life the most. It is the most convenient. It's just really fun to use. And I'm not even though I've become somewhat of a frame rate snob due to things like performance modes in the PS5, when I play on the Switch, it all goes away for the most part. Yeah. But I've encountered a series of games, including ones we're going to talk about today, where I don't need a PS5 in like my backpack, but god damn it, I would just like to be able to run things at higher than 17 frames a second sometimes, because it's not even necessarily impacting gameplay moment to moment, although that does happen in one of the games that we'll get to. It's just kind of ugly to look at and ends up being a disservice to like the really pretty games that are on that screen, and it's a bummer.
And they even added
that's where we're at.
A nicer screen that will still have the frame issues. But it'll be pretty for when it works, and then when it doesn't, it's gonna look pretty bad. Pretty
I get that these things are connected, but when I want more power in the Switch, it is extremely not to get 4K performance out of it. It is about frame rate stability more than anything else. And I'm also not a big frame rate like snob in any way, but I know that I think about something like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, where like that is a game that had such bad frame rate that it was hard for me, someone who was very excited for that game, to like push through. And more importantly, I think about things like all of the work that goes into making a game like that, and all like the unique animations for all the characters and all of the kind of atmosphere of these places. And it's like, it's done kind of dirty by the hardware at this point. And that's such a shame, because it's so good. I love the console. I've also put a ton of time into the console this week. There's so much I love about the Switch, and 80% of the time I'm playing the Switch, I'm not bothered by its performance, but that 20% is frustrating and is limiting in some ways, because it would be nice to get this little soft push that allows people to stretch a little bit more. We saw it with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox, whatever, the Xbox Series, what was it called? The Xbox
One X.
One X, right. They gave it a little bit of lasting power. I still, maybe that Bloomberg reporting is still right, and in 2022 or 2023 we'll get. I think
it is. So I'd like to close the loop on my shade at the like the discrepancy between the data miners and like sort of the reporter. What I think happened. This is my best guess. This is not based on just having like, yeah, exactly. My guess is the Bloomberg team is right. That model exists, and that there are two models, and that what the data miners found was that there was a model that lined up to be very much just the existing Switch with a dock that could output at 4K. But that doesn't mean, like, that just mean on a spec sheet, there's a dock that could output at 4K. Nintendo's not going to let it, or they built it to a specs that didn't include that part of it. And so my belief is that if you read, like, I follow a lot of like Apple news, like a lot of like rumors about the future of those devices come from supply chains, don't come from insiders at Apple necessarily. You have your folks like if you follow Apple stuff, Mark Gurman is a reporter also at Bloomberg who clearly just has insiders at Apple talking about upcoming features and ideas. But a lot of the times when you're hearing like the new camera is going to do this, it's like that's not an insider at Apple. That's like someone on the supply chain that saw it. So my guess is that's where Bloomberg got their news, and that is a model that I think could very well come next year. I don't know when, but that. Go ahead.
The Game Boy Advance SP came out a year before the DS. For example, like they're dropping new revisions of hardware and then dropping a brand new like piece of hardware a year apart. So like this could totally be that. There's the little like when I saw this happen, I was like, oh, it's the Switch SP or whatever. The game, like the way the Game Boy Advance SP was like, it's a better screen, like a different form factor, but really it's just backlit. That's all we did to it.
Right.
Yeah,
but that was hugely important.
Yeah, that was like
to be fair, the backlight lighting was
that hardware was
very
borderline
useful.
unplayable in some instances.
Truly a testament to the quality of the software on that system that any of us put up with that shit for as long as we did.
Yeah.
What a good system that was. God damn.
And then a year later, they dropped the DS, right? They dropped the new Switch 2 coming out next year.
I'll be honest.
Could still happen.
I think I like the SP more than I ever liked the DS.
Well, the DS
in my heart of hearts. I love the DS.
But also you need to remember, like the history of Nintendo. They did not pitch the DS as the successor to the Game Boy.
True.
They pitched it as this is an experiment. We're trying something new. So part of the reason that timeline is as compressed as it is just we look back on it now and go, the DS was such a phenomenon, like such a success that that was just the Game Boy 3.0.
Right.
Like, it wasn't. It was them being like, okay, if this doesn't work out, like we can just shuffle this bad boy to the side, and who wants another Game Boy? This one does 3D. And I my suspicion with the Switch is that we will get this in October. Next holiday, we will get this Switch Pro equivalent, and there is a Switch 2, but it is likely further off than would make any of us like truly comfortable. Which makes me concerned about the future of Switch software, not in the sense that will it sell, it will continue to sell just fine. And Nintendo games specifically, and Nintendo games which are the ones that sell the most on this hardware, are typically the best engineered to look good. I think, the Age of Calamity is an exception. Also, not made by Nintendo, collaboration with Nintendo, made by Team Ninja, right? Or Koei Tecmo. And so I expect Nintendo games to perform better than anyone else and look better than anyone else, but it does seem like we'll get games like Monster Hunter Stories, which like have a very beautiful art style, but also like, oh no, I'm in the town. How come I can't walk at a frame? Where are they going?
My expectations are low enough for Switch 2 that I believe that whatever this we would be calling the Switch Pro will end up being the Switch 2. Like that will be the fanfare around it. It'll be like, this is the new one, even though all it really does is now we can do 4K. Maybe they'll call it the Switch 4K or some shit, right?
Yeah.
Like the naming convention could be wherever, but it just feels like, I don't know. This was so wildly, like the Switch was so wildly popular that I don't know where they go. Like, I don't know how quickly they're turning around something that couldn't be the number 2 if what we've got now was this small refresh and that other model is still out, like floating, right?
I don't. I guess. No, I don't expect them to put out a Switch 2 in the next few years still. The tail on this thing has been so long already.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like it's going to subside, to Patrick's point about like the Nintendo software will continue to sell until they feel they are hitting hard, difficult, stop points. I can't imagine them putting out.
Also, I'm not even sure that's what I think them hitting hard, difficult stop points is not even necessarily the motivator. It's the Switch is starting to sell less. Yeah. Time for the Switch 2.
The Switch is in everyone's hands already. In the same way that when you look at the long tail of something like the PlayStation or the PS2 or the Wii, where the Wii sold so many that eventually the saturation was so deep that they needed to sell another console in order to keep console sales up, right?
Right. And I think that's the model to look at is like when does the phenomenon end? And like these models along the way, a Switch Lite, the Switch OLED, which is very funny to see their naming conventions in like the press release. It's just like Nintendo Switch OLED screen. OLED.
Don't worry about it.
It's like those just boosted along the way, and they get better margins along the way, and they make a lot of money, but they make less money than you think relative to giant companies. And so I think as soon as that soon as those sales dip, but I just don't see any.
Yeah.
I don't see that on the horizon anytime
I'm looking
soon.
at the list now, and they're the Wii okay, Switch comes out in 2017, early 2017. Wii U comes out in November 2012, so that's little under 5 years of difference. Wii U is 2006, so that's a 6-year jump, 2006 to 2012. GameCube is 2001. So we're in that space.
Right.
If they were keeping to that space, assuming that's how long it took to saturate the market with each of those things.
I just think the Switch is fundamentally different because
this is the degree of success.
It's not a trick in the way that the Wii was, right?
Yeah,
like, I think part of the reason the Wii fell off was that, they did Motion Plus, they did a Wii Sports 2, Wii Sports Resort, and it just didn't hit. And people were like, we're good. Like, no, it's fine. Like, we got Mario Kart, we got Wii Sports. Like, the Wii, the part of the reason the Wii was as big as it was because it was a cultural phenomenon built on a gimmick. And I love that gimmick. I love motion controls, not being derogatory to that whatsoever. But at a certain point, they hit saturation on that specific sort of like sell.
Gonna play
and that
Skyward
wasn't working
Sword with motion controls in the new update.
Right.
Right.
And I just don't think the Switch has the same sort of it has a longer tail because it has like its hook is more, do you just want to play video games wherever you go? Yeah. It's not like, so I just think that appeals to a broader audience for a longer period of time that is used to playing games on a phone or an iPad where the tech aspect of it isn't as in high regard, or the expectation is different.
Is there any reporting on what the current and how the current Nintendo leadership looks in comparison to where it was at the top of Switch when the Switch launched, right? So I know that I mean we can talk about Iwata passing, but we can also talk about like there's a different president now, even since then, I believe. There is because I think that it went to Kimishima after Iwata, but now it's someone else who I don't know.
They're not as front facing as Iwata was.
But I'm curious if the thing I'm building towards is, do you think in our lifetimes, either here or somewhere else, we'll see Nintendo move towards the platform position of something like Xbox, which if you buy an Xbox Series X, you're buying an Xbox 3 or an Xbox One also, right? It plays all those games. It plays many Xbox 360 games. Is there a world in which a Switch 2 exists where there's a hard cut, but also it just continues with your profile? It continues with all of your Switch games,
100%. I don't think there's I think they expect the Switch to be like a multi-decade.
It's
project.
An iPod now. I mean, that's the other thing about that.
It's an iPhone. It's an iPad. Like you buy a new iPad and it's just all your shit comes over. I don't know if it'll run.
That
nicer.
That Switch OLED commercial was basically an Apple commercial. Like, it was as close as I've ever seen Nintendo make an Apple commercial.
And traditionally for their handheld models, they already did that sort of back compatibility thing with the thing before, right? Like the DS could play advanced games. And even Game Boy games, right? Like you could put a like old school Game Boy game in, it'd stick out.
There was the bottom. There was the bottom slot. Big slot. Yeah, you're right.
You could play anything you had. Cool. Which was great.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Which
is like in my pocket the way an SP did. The SP just was like perfect form factor. Anyway. Interesting stuff to think about. We should take a break and then come back and actually talk about some of these Switch games. I would love the DLSS 4K model to just be a Switch 2 that comes out soon. It's not gonna.
No, it's. I think
because now they've closed a certain window by releasing this.
It will not. Yeah, it's not going to be tied to Breath of the Wild. That was and I've tried to convey the little I can convey like in this podcast. I'd like to. But one, I feel like I have said in the past, like, hey, the little I know about this device like really sets your expectations low. Yeah. Can't remember if I said that in the podcast or you privately, but that's definitely like the vibe I had gotten. Even if as I was hoping for more. And also, they just don't operate the way other companies do, where it's like, we got to release the new hardware with a new game. And so those things are separate events. Like the big game, then, when they need another spike, you have the hardware. Like then you have the big game. So, in my mind, I feel like the Switch Pro or whatever is like is along the same timeline as like a Metroid Prime 4, but I don't expect those to launch simultaneously. But I wouldn't be surprised if like a next holiday game was Metroid Prime 4 in September, October, and then like a Switch Pro in November, or like the following spring. Like this, like
simply so easy to imagine it being tied to Breath of the Wild 2 and also that Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Yep.
Because of how
even thinking back to
like it was running.
The DS or whatever launch lineup was nothing or like nothing big, right?
But I think it's a little more difficult. I think it's a little more difficult with. Maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it's a little more difficult today with a TV console. I know the Switch is a portable, but
right. And you can see the DNA of both of those different kind of tracks of thought in the Switch, right? Like the way that they've treated it. I could see one just launching, and because they maybe if it includes, there isn't a hard cutoff that includes backward compatibility with all Switch games, even though it says the 2, they just like ride on that. It's like, oh, you still have all the whole library,
all this great stuff. Yeah,
the new stuff, we'll get eventually.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's take that break. Come back, and I want to hear about Boomerang X.
Boomerang X.
Boomerang X. Boomerang X. Boomerang X.
Sonic.
Boomerang.
Is that a Sonic X? Is that a game?
No, that was a Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist. Boomerang X.
Boomerang
X.
I was trying to do it in the super hot voice. Boomerang.
Boomerang X.
Boomerang
X. Yeah.
Boomerang X is a new game from Devolver. I was going to look up what this
who the actual developer is.
Before.
It is
Dang.
Dang. It's just Dang.
Dang with an exclamation mark, all capital.
Great.
They did a game called so on Steam they just have another game listed called IO Interloper. IO Interloper is a hacking heist game all about peeping through security cams, piloting drones, duping rubes, and saying I'm in a really gruff voice.
Wait, what?
Release date.
Excuse me?
Release date before
2035.
Yeah, this looks sick. And also
adding
sick.
that to my wish list.
In the tech-loaded future of 2035, an anonymous hacker attempts to steal the fortune of the, quote, richest, most passionate, most go-getterist CEO the world has ever seen.
Yes.
A simple heist rapidly becomes an investigation into the seemingly metaphysical secrets of the biggest company in history. Cannot wait.
This sounds great.
Add to my wish list.
Yeah.
IO Interloper coming to Switch 2 in 2035.
Anyway, but today we're talking about Boomerang X.
Devolver, they have such a good track record at this point that whatever gruff I give them about like their like E3 presentations, like the games that are contained within and the indie teams that they work with, even the ones that I bounce off of, like a Loop Hero, which I like so much in concept and then just didn't find that it stuck with me. But I really admire that game and think it's really brilliantly designed. I just sort of like assume like, yep, I should just check out the next thing that they found because they really have a strong track record. And so I hadn't really been paying attention to Boomerang X. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess the new one's, oh shoot, it's out in a couple of days. Like I need something for the podcast. I'm gonna check this out. Boomerang X is a game I don't know what you show up on an island, Cado, right? I guess not a whole. I have a lot of setup.
I got very strong, like, are you like a leper that's been tossed to sea situation because of the bandaged arms, which is a very like...
Yeah, you kind of look like a mummy.
Yeah, and I assume you've been like exiled randomly and you crash your ship on this island that looks beautiful. Like, I love the art style for this game. And you find this boomerang.
I've looked up on Steam to see if there was any sort of
there's nothing
premise or plot. There is not. I mean, there is like a little bit of lore. Like there is these creatures have taken over the island. They have there was sort of like a like an existing people basically were overwhelmed by these creatures.
It gives me
weren't
extreme
able to,
like Chozo from Metroid. Like you're finding bits and like leftover stuff of that include like power ups and stuff that were from this. I don't think they're even ancient, but like this race of people who are no longer there.
This might have happened. This could have happened a week ago.
Yeah,
for all I know. But you've got like you'll find like bodies that are like don't seem like they've the corpses from all that long ago. But you're finding temples and other like places of worship and other places of civilization that are retrofitted into, or more or less just conveniently happen to look like combat arenas, but also a little bit of civilization. But like you're just kind of plopped into this place. There's this boomerang that you pick up, and then the game's like, yo, you should throw this boomerang. And I just have to say, I'll get into the mechanics, but like, I put out a tweet like that was purposely vague, and that was like, I'm vibing so hard with the game that I'm, upcoming game that I'm shaking. And like this game, I like feel a way, like this is like, hey, found my game of the year sort of game. Like it feels so good to play. Like it is so fast and nimble and exciting. And
we should note you're playing on PC, not on Switch.
We'll get there. I've played on both platforms. Okay. Have thoughts. I'll get there. I can explain. But like a lot of what you're doing is, so it starts out very simple, where like you from like mouse controls, like you like left click and you like throw the boomerang. Ooh, there's an enemy. Shoot it, get it back. You get thrown into these combat arenas where certain enemies have like a yellow distinction. And like those are key enemies. You have to defeat the key enemies, and then the round is over. The other enemies are just sort of, what do they call that in Dota? The lane enemies. Yeah, they're kind of like creeps. Yeah. Like they're just kind of, they're fodder. Although they turn into a mechanic that we'll get into later. But they're mostly just there to try and just take out your health and distract you. And you need to hit these marked ones with the yellow spot. And then it starts layering on more mechanics like very quickly. Like, you go from just throwing 5 minutes into the game to doing a lot more over the course of an hour. It's a very short game. I'm like 3/4 through and I've played like 90 minutes. So you're only looking at 2 to 3 hours, depending on like how difficult you find the combat arenas to be as it goes along. But so you start out just throwing. And then if you hold it down, you can throw it really far and really precise. So it turns from like a pistol shot with the boomerang, turns into a sniper rifle, where you can be looking at an enemy way the fuck on the other side of the arena. As long as you hold that down, spin it up and let it go, it'll hit them. And then if you right click, you can bring that boomerang right back. So you could be like, spin it up, shoot it, bring it back, spin it up, shoot it, bring it back. And so you can start to see the like the motions you're getting into, the flow you're getting into, with just like hitting enemies on the ground. And then the game's like, hey, like what if you threw that thing, and then if you hit the throw button again, you just warp to it. Like,
you love it. You love to hear it.
And so you can
not
have,
just like a teleport where you land to where it is, you get kind of slingshot in the direction of it, which means you have an arc. You can like use it to launch yourself over a trajectory, which is really,
we're talking about it being like a grappling hook that doesn't have to actually grapple onto anything.
Correct.
Like,
yes. So you can just, it doesn't have to go into any part of the environment. It's just wherever you throw it. And so you have instances where, let's say you'll have 3 enemies swarming at you, and you could run away from them. But most likely what you're going to do is you're just going to toss that boomerang in the air, tap that teleport, and just get the fuck out of the way. You can also very quickly, the structures go from horizontal to vertical, in which you'll have a bunch of architecture in front of you. And so you'll just absentmindedly shoot that boomerang to the ceiling and just catapult. There's no fall damage. They really want you to just like vibe.
You can use this teleport as many times as you want.
Gratuitously. Because so then they layer on like really the other like most key mechanic, which is a slowdown function. So when you are holding, and this is where everything clicks together, you figure out the basic flow of the game, and my heart grew, 10 sizes. So what happens is as you, if you're basically charging up the shot where you're holding down the button and it's spinning really fast, which allows you to do this, the sniper shot, instead of releasing that, as you're holding up that charge, if you press left shift, time just slows down for about 5 seconds. Now, then that starts to, if you start to think about, and that has a immediate, like you have 5 seconds, it goes away. Then all you have to do is redo the charge of the boomerang, and you can do it again. There's not, the game doesn't want you fucking around with worrying about cooldowns and like when can you do things again. It's just like, you did it, all right, just do that thing again and just do it how many times you want. And so
you can fly through the air and hold left shift and can hit, and you will still be floating in the air and slowing down time every time you hit the boomerang again. It's great.
So what you end up doing is like the game starts out with these very basic enemies that hit them in any direction you want. These little black spiders or ants or little flies, and there's no, you're not thinking about how you're hitting them as much as that you should just hit them. But then the game starts introducing, like, there's an enemy that spawns other enemies. It's kind of like this hulking, not quite a troll, more like a statue sort of looking thing that will often be set up on a vertical part of the environment that you need to get to. And so they're also moving, and the only spot you can hit them is this big glowing red spot in their back. And so you need to get to a specific spot to do it. So what you end up doing is just these really cool movements where you are shooting yourself into the sky, slowing yourself down so you can set up the next shot, where you're spinning it up, but then as you're spinning it up, you're slow and you're aiming. So then you send you send the shot forward.
Right.
So then you teleport. As soon as you grab that thing, slow down again.
Slow down time, right.
And you're basically, it's almost like a first-person Spider-Man in a lot of ways. Like, if you think of the boomerang as like Peter Parker's webbing, that's like a pretty decent like analogy. Like, if you could take the aesthetic of this game and just make a Spider-Man game like pretty quickly. And like, now that I'm thinking about that, I'm like, Marvel, like, just like, like John Drake, you're at Disney, like, give Dang a call and let them do a tiny Spider-Man game. I would go dang if you made that game. And so you find like you find yourself just like going around these arenas with such grace and precision. It's beautiful. It feels so extremely cool to do as you are lining up these precision shots and moving around the space. It's rare that I play a game where you feel impressed with yourself, and I'm not actually playing at a high level. It's just because the abilities in front of me make me feel so fucking cool while I'm doing it. I was just like constantly in awe at what I was doing, where I was like pumping my fist and like shouting while I'm playing, which of course would like make me release the mouse, and like so then I fall to the ground. There's all these other small mechanics where like if you as you're flying through the air, and like let's say there's a platform you want to fall down on. For example, you have these health shields that you can heal by sitting on these little icons in the arenas. But they're often in obscure places, like, hey, kind of like a platform that there's not really much reason to be there from like a attacking the enemy perspective. It's mostly there because, hey, how are you going to get there so you can get this health? If you hold space while you are teleporting, you can just stop yourself. Like, you put your mummy hand up, and it's like, whoa, like force stop, like hit the brakes, and then you can just fall to the ground. And like,
it's very funny because it's just the double. Like, I expected there to be a double jump almost, but instead you throw out your hand and you kind of stop midair. I was like, oh, that's a weird thing for the jump button to do. But then you learn. I did that like the first room or whatever, and I was like, that's a weird, what a weird thing to do for a second jump. And then I get the teleport. I'm like, right. I'm gonna need to slow myself down sometimes.
And then immediately gives you abilities. It's like, you're never gonna jump again. Like, if you're jumping, like, you fucked up. Like, this jump ain't worth shit. 10 minutes into the game, because you're because there's no, in a different game, it's easy to imagine there being like more significant cooldowns or pressures on things like the teleportation function that would force you to use the jump more often. But this game just throws all that out and instead creates difficulty through like the way it introduces enemy types, like Yeah, the way it's gotten complicated for me at this stage in the game is you will have like really giant vertical spaces and then enemies that are just have different. If I was to like describe their behaviors, none of it seems all that complicated. Like for example, you've got your your ants scurrying along the bottom, who at some point can occasionally turn into alligators scurrying along like a water aesthetic. You have the flies that are buzzing around the arena. You have the statues that are producing those flies that are buzzing around the arena until you take them out. But then also you may have like big hulking, almost like whale-like bugs that have shields on them because they're being flown around by these tinier bugs. And so you need to sniper shot them in order to attack the other one. You also have enemies that look like big dinosaurs from Horizon Zero Dawn that have giant red spots on them, like a boss that you need to take out. But those red spots are hidden in different parts of the creature, so you need to be swinging around in like weird ass ways to find them.
It's an amazing like escalation of that boss, of that enemy, the statue enemy you described earlier. It's that same kind of concept of you have to find the way to move around it to get the right angle, but to like the scale shift is just kind of like like inspiring. It's like, oh my god, what? Like this is because it's the first time it drops. It's the biggest thing you've seen. It's really, really a great moment too. Just like wow.
and even that enemy type is doing different. Like part of what
Different
the game is like
attacks,
layering difficulty. Right, is like finding ways of like locking off parts of the arena to you. So like for example, this kind of like Brachiosaurus like enemy has the ability to sort of like create this I don't know, like blackout near the top of its head, where normally, hey, your strategy is going to be I'm just going to keep swinging around near the top and that's going to keep me safe. And the game says, well, what if you have what if this spreads out this black fog and suddenly, you can hang out on the top, but you need to like stay on your A game and keep swinging around because the moment you touch that black fog, you're going to take a hit. And it's a really special game. It like the quote, the game feel, for lack of a better term, like it just feels so good to do all the things in the game that it reminds me of I think I saw a headline this morning of someone, because the game, it's, as we're recording, it's coming out, I believe, on Switch and PC. That we've seen a lot of these games to try to harness like games like Doom, the speed of those old school shooters, and Boomerang X feels. Like to trying to harness that like ultra speed of those games. And I've just never really. I've looked at a lot of these like games that are Doom-like that you can like, or Quake-like that you can play on Steam, and like they all seem really neat, but I've just never felt the pull to, if I want to play one of those, like I'm happy to just go back and play like original Quake or whatever. Right. But what I like about Boomerang X is that it's in conversation with that aesthetic, both from a design and like artistic perspective, and using that sense of speed, but like layering on just a totally different set of mechanics that are just tuned tuned so well. Like everything is just working so well that you often feel overwhelmed, but extremely in control, in a way that is just I find very rare to find in a game.
Yeah, it's like they captured the speed of like doing rocket jump like tricks in Quake without needing you needing to actually do the trick, right? Like it is the mechanic is moving that quickly around these arenas.
I feel like, I mean this the most complimentary way possible to Boomerang X. This feels like a Quake mod. This feels like in the same way that Team Fortress like became its own game spinning off of a mod. Like this feels like something I would have downloaded and my friends and I were like, yo, check out this fucking Boomerang game that someone made for Quake, and it has all of those vibes in the best way possible. And connected to that is, all right, so this game, sense of speed, check.
Yes. Here we go.
Speed being critical to pulling off the moves in a way that feels satisfactory, and if you're at fault, your fault. Like check, need all that stuff. So I started playing this game on Switch, and part of the reason I thought it'd be fine was because the aesthetic looks simple in a good way, right? Like it's very clean and readable, and it doesn't seem like it's overachieving or it would be overtaxing a hardware like the Switch. And when your only two machines that you're coming out on are PC and Switch, one, that is just a strategic move because like that is just like smart.
So many people have
developer.
Switches. Yeah.
Yes, to do that. And then two, it suggests to me that like, oh, like it should probably like run pretty well. Like wouldn't be shocked if it ran like a solid 60 on the Switch. Not the case. It doesn't run poorly. It is. In no way do I want to suggest that it is unplayable. I played through a third of the game just fine on Switch and was having a good time. But it was the rare instance in which I went, normally frame rate doesn't get to me, but damn, this game really feels like it demands like the fastest frame rate possible. And also more specifically, I wanted to play with a keyboard and mouse. And I am someone that when they play on a PC, and this irritates Rob every time, like I still play with a controller. I like controllers. I like the flexibility of PCs, but I don't have a particular sort of like affinity for the keyboard and mouse. Like I like controllers, and I just find to stick one of those in if I'm playing a shooter or an action game on my PC. But this game felt like I wanted that added layer of precision, and I swear by it. Like it is like not a fundamentally different game, but fairly close with a mouse and keyboard and like a rock solid, like really fast frame rate. It feels like it's the way the game is like meant to be played, and that you can get along just fine on Switch, but it really feels like it's time to game when you're playing it on the PC. And so if you have the option to go with the PC, that's the place. Really does come with my highest recommendation, because my guess is it'll run just fine even on modest hardware. If you can only play it on Switch, I think it is still well worth your while. It plays just fine, and it's just a game that I feel like demands the speed to a degree that if you can pick the PC.
Pick PC. Yeah. Speaking of games that both PC and Switch versions, which for some reason I didn't realize that this was coming out on PC. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin is a game that I'll probably talk more about next week. But I'm still very early on. I think we've all touched it.
Yeah.
I'm playing on Switch. Cado, are you also on Switch?
I'm on PC.
You're on PC.
I downloaded the Switch demo just to kind of see.
Right.
But yeah, I'm mainly on PC.
Why didn't you stick with the Switch?
Well, because I got code for PC first.
I sent him a PC code.
That's why.
Austin.
Okay.
But no, you're right. I played through that, and I played through that demo after the fact. I started on PC before I left for my vacation. Okay. Played like an hour or so of it, and then I downloaded it. Just like, let's see how far this trial goes. Maybe I can inch a little more forward past where I was. And I noticed kind of almost immediately, because I was also skipping a lot of the dialogue, so I went a little faster, a lot of the cutscenes and stuff. That the frame rate is real choppy in a turn-based battle game where you feel like those animations probably shouldn't be taxing a machine as much, but in like when you do like special attacks and like the effects are just like, oh wow, this is dipped like down to 20 all of a sudden for an attack, a regular attack. It feels like it's kind of rough. I'm kind of glad I have it on the PC to play the fuller game, but
it again does make me think of the thing before that I was saying, which is like shocking how much work went into the animation in this game, and the visual design is just like incredible. And then seeing it dip is like, oh, like I want people to see this the best way it could be.
This is a series that started on 3DS, right?
Yes.
It is currently exclusive to Switch. I know it's also on PC, but like PC kind of exists off in its own like separate realm, and by all accounts was a game that was developed in partnership with Nintendo to have something that was a little like broader and more family friendly than like core Monster Hunter. And so it looks like a game that by all accounts was like developed with the Switch hardware in mind of like, hey, we're building a game that's coming out on Switch, and yet still like struggles mightily to deliver like like a basic like solid frame rate in like an area that you're going to be in all the time, the town.
Yeah. What I will say is I my gut about when I think about this game, having played it for a little bit, is still just, damn, I think that game looks good. And that's me playing it on Switch, playing both on TV and portable. I didn't play the first one of these. I'm sure there's some loose connection to the first one of these. You're playing as like a rookie rider, someone who connects with the various monsters, aka monsties of the world, raises them, breeds them. I guess mostly. I guess you are breeding because there's a whole genetic system that I'm still very early on with
and stuff.
The eggs that all have and you're able to like have do a special kind of rite to kind of channel elements of one monster into another monster. You're able to like gacha game feed monsters to other monsters, basically. Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
It's basically a JRPG where you have a party, you have yourself, you have a Pokemon style collection of monsters with you that you can switch between in battles. You often will have an NPC and their monster with you as well. You're doing again kind of that style of comparing it just to Pokemon. I think it is not right because it doesn't have the depth of Pokemon in some ways. Like it doesn't have sort of as many like elemental types in that way, but it does have both speed, power, and technique attack types, and it also has piercing, blunt, and slashing damage types depending on weapon.
Right.
But all of those are very fungible. You're not like going into battle with only one of those. Do you know what I mean? You're carrying 2 weapons or 3 weapons at all times, or you have up to 6 different monsters, and you don't waste a turn when you switch a monster out. Sorry, a monstie out. So you're always able to kind of move between these things. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and one of the interesting things about it is, even though it's a turn-based RPG combat system where you might expect, okay, I'm giving orders to all the characters that are in my party currently, and you're not. You're giving orders to your character, and the monster kind of attacks on its own until you start riding it, which is like its own mechanic where you have to build up a meter to ride it.
You can go in and have it do a specific thing.
Well, don't you need meter for that though? Like at first, it just kind of attacks on its own.
I think you spend a little bit of meter to make it do its buffs or debuffs. So you can
for some
but yes,
turns,
you're right.
like it's like they call it the kinship meter.
You're like,
right? Like
you're like, oh my god, please just do a power attack. We know this thing is weak to a power attack. Why are you doing a speed attack?
It's just in the monster's nature, which I think I kind of
totally,
like.
Which I like.
Yes, thematically, it's just like, oh, this thing is kind of gonna do things on its own until I direct it, and I need to kind of fight next to it for a little bit before I can give it direct orders or even hop on.
Yeah.
It's also really fun how they translated some of the damage type differences from like the mainline Monster Hunter games, like bludgeoning and slashing. In that, for example, like very early on, you fight the Kulu Yaku, which is the bird like monster that tends to dig up rocks and use those as a shield, and you need to swap to a hammer like you would in the other games in order to like break it more easily. You see things like
totally
when you do power, speed, or technical attacks as your character. The technical attacks are usually like you're doing a dodge before attacking sort of thing, and like you kind of recognize the move sets from the great sword or the hammer or like whatever you're using from the mainline games, which is a really neat kind of through line to it.
And you're crafting all your gear. I mean, it's much simpler than a regular Monster Hunter game. You're not crafting individual pieces of gear. You're crafting gear like full equipment sets. You're doing like, okay, this is my what is the one I'm in now? The cool orange one. I forget the name. Maybe that is the Kulaku armor. Maybe that is. Yeah, it is. It is the Kulu armor set. like you're in that whole set at once. You're not mixing and matching in the same way. And they have buffs and passives and stuff like that. Likewise, you're building equipment and then using monster parts. It's sort of like the thing where when you can go in after you've created a thing to in Monster Hunter like Rise, where you don't necessarily always need. It's like, sort of like the upgrading thing in Monster Hunter Rise, where you don't necessarily need you don't need specific parts. You need points based on. So if you want to make the Kuliku, like, axe or whatever, I don't think there's an axe. I said axe. I meant greatsword, let's say. It's not that you need the beak and the talon. It's that a beak gives so many points towards crafting it, and a talon gives so many more points for crafting it, let's say. And that system is kind of fun, and upgrading all that stuff is good. But really, just like, I think that the battles are just good. Like, I think that it's just a fun battle system. You're often learning how to counter particular, like you said, the Kuliku rock thing. But it's like Monster Hunter. A lot of the monsters have tells. A lot of the monsters have weak points. A lot of the monsters have multiple parts to target. Stuff like that, and that is just genuinely fun. A lot of the weapons have unique things. So like I'm using a gun lance now,
nice.
A weapon I've always wanted to use in actual Monster Hunter, and just I've like never put the time into, but I can just do it here because it's just menus,
right?
And that gains ammo instead of charge meter, and it gains and it has like very high damaging, high level stuff when you can when you deploy all that ammo at once. You can do the Wyvern Fire if you get your kinship meter up all the way. Like,
nice,
it's a JRPG. It has a bunch of little mechanics. It's nice that each of the weapons does feel distinct in that way. I want to make a hunting horn and see how the buffs and debuffs and stuff work. I guess it's probably just buffs. And I think it just looks really good. It looks like it reminds me a lot of like a level 5 game, in terms of its aesthetic, in terms of its anime aesthetics. This is a Monster Hunter shonen story. Also, this is like,
I just got
friendship.
Yeah. Well, even to the point of the story, I like the setup a lot more than some of the other Monster Hunter games. It's just like, here we've got some natives to this island, and here we got some outsiders visiting that fuck up some native shit that
fuck up some shit.
Some natural shit that we had under control. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, the game still is like like people in harmony with the monsters, but also, you ready to go kill some monsters that just seem to be grazing and eating over here? You want to fuck them up?
Listen. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you need to fuck up some monsters,
Sometimes you fuck up some monsters. You can hunt. I'm not fundamental. I'm not like.
But I'm just saying there are creatures in this game, like kind of the Velociraptor looking ones that are.
Yes.
They're coming after you. You're like, they turn into red.
Yes.
And then there's the bigger
the herbivores who are just like boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
Why are you attacking me? What's the technique attack? I've only got sleepy attack. No!
That's right.
Superior bone fell off.
Here's a question. Are y'all naming your monsties, or are you just leaving them? This is like a classic Pokemon thing.
Right.
You rename these monsters. Because in Pokemon, I don't.
Yeah, I am. I had the impulse to do it with the Kuliaku, but I couldn't come up with a good enough name, so I left it. But I definitely feel like I'm going to want to as I go on. Because I don't know what it is about there being like more of.
I think a big thing is, and maybe this would have changed if I'd played Sword and Shield, is seeing a bunch of them in the field, seeing other ones.
Yeah.
Not just the one. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're out there. How do I determine this is mine? Well, the answer is I have a name.
The other thing of that is that there's so many Pokemon and not as many monsters, right? So you're going to see more of the same type.
Yeah.
Which kind of, is part of the, where I was like, this one's the one that hangs out with me. Also because the NPC character that kind of like is your like sensei, your teacher, has named their Velociraptors different names. And you're like,
and you start with one of them. And you're like, that means that they have names. They have names.
Yes, they have names.
This is a part of the culture.
They're my friends. I'm gonna name them things, and not just call them Velocipede or what. I forget what the name of the actual monster is.
It's almost rude at that point,
right?
Which is not how I feel about Pokemon.
No,
I don't know.
No, it's weird.
I feel like growing up with Ash calling all of them just the names that they are.
Right.
made that in my mind correct.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
it's not, Pikachu doesn't have a nickname.
No, it's just Pikachu.
That's Pikachu. And
Doesn't
so
matter
on,
that there's
and
other
so
Pikachus
forth.
in the world.
And yes, that was a choice for brand recognition,
right.
but that's how it is now, isn't it? Anyway, it seems good. I just again want to say, like, I think like the attack animations look sick. It just looks better than I ever imagined it could. I in terms of how cool it is to see all the monsters in this style.
Yeah.
It's nice to be like in Monster Hunter enough to be like, oh, it's
Hey, it's
the
what's
one
his
that
face.
fucking
Yeah.
it's Puke Puke.
Hey,
Puke Puke is here,
Puke Puke.
everybody.
Oh,
We're all
shit.
here, including Puke Puke.
Anjanath is here. There's this big fucking whatever. You know, that stuff is all very
Fucking
cool.
cool. I did a little like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
Kulu Yaku. Yeah, that
Ku's
guy.
here. Yeah, exactly. The colonizers are here.
The colonizers.
Uh,
the hunters are here?
Oh, the
we're
hunters
the
are here.
hunters.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
the
the
hunters.
hunters
I
are
see.
here.
I'm a rider.
the
You're a
hunters
hunter?
are
You're a
here.
hunter. I'm a rider. You know, we different. You and me.
Yeah.
We different.
Oh.
Anyway, so I don't have too much to say about that because while I should have been playing that, I was instead playing Dark Souls 1 Remastered on Switch. I know you thought Rob isn't even here this week. How are we going to talk about an 8-year-old game?
Yeah, you messaged me with almost like a sense of shame that you had done this.
Yeah, I did. It's actually I said an 8-year-old game. It's a decade old. It's a decade old this September.
Oh well, that's
the
sense of shame
remaster came
that
out
I
more
have.
recently.
The remaster came out and I'm playing the remaster on Switch, which is like playing the original with like some slight added.
Right.
Like I think maybe the frame rate is more consistent in certain places. Maybe
Blight Town's not as bad.
Yeah, Blight Town was fine. Which here's the thing: the fact that I'm through Blight Town, it should be an indicator of that I'm kind of deep into it at this point. All right. So here's what happened. I was playing Ender Lilies. I was liking Ender Lilies.
Yep.
For many reasons, between Ender Lilies and some other stuff I'm working on, I've been in a Dark Soulsy space. Remember, I read Berserk recently. Like, I'm in that space in my mind, and I've been thinking about revisiting Dark Souls secondhand, watching a let's play, listening to. I'm going back and listening to the Bonfireside chats podcast. I'm like, I was like in that mode, and while listening to that podcast, they said something that I'd forgotten entirely about Dark. I haven't played Dark Souls since it came out, right? So ripe for revisiting. I've seen it a lot of times all the way through. I've seen other people play through it. I think, or maybe not all the way through, but I remember watching like Vinny play through half of it at Giant Bomb at some point. And then
I've watched the first half of that game many times, and then the second half, like post ONS, is like a little.
It was a little hazy.
Well,
yeah.
It's also like the not as good part of Dark. I mean,
maybe.
it's still good.
Oh yeah, we'll see, right? Because that's where I am now. Is where this is going to. But I'd forgotten something from the early game. I was like, is that right? Do I have to? Let me go back and check that. And I was like, well, I have it on my Switch already. I have my Switch. I have my Switch. I'm about to go on this bus trip. Let me just download it. And I downloaded it. I was like, I'll just play it on the bus. I'll just play the intro. I'll just play through Firelink. I want to remember something. Okay, yeah, here that is. Let me just play a little bit more. I start with the Master Key. I didn't start with the Master Key when this game came out. I could fuck around a little bit. I could go down to the Valley of the Drakes and maybe get that early Divine Sword. Get there.
Better fight a boss, right? Like
fight a boss. What do not fight like a boss?
Yeah,
what's it look like on Switch? Let me go fight the Taurus Demon. Oh, I one-shotted the Taurus Demon.
Damn.
What's good? Damn, it's like I've been playing these games for a decade, and I understand if you just get up on their feet behind them a little bit, you're good. Let me keep moving. Let me keep a Capra Demon. I'm going to show you a Capra Demon. Boom, got him.
Wow.
Up there, those wolves come up at you. You kill the wolves, the dogs. You jump down. You kind of kite it a little bit. I think
when I streamed that myself, when I was playing it for the first time, and I one-shotted the Capra Demon, I think that was the one that people were most irritated by.
Yeah.
They were just like, "Oh, come on!"
Yeah.
I
watched you play this game. Actually, now I think about it, I watched you play because you streamed this whole thing, didn't you, at GB?
I did, yeah. When Katie was on vacation one time, that was my get ready for Dark Souls 2, try to like this game. But that was the one. I had a fairly like easy time with the game once I like got into its like post like gargoyles like rhythm.
Yeah.
But I just remember that one, like people were just like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna eat shit," and then no,
not at all.
Belt gargoyles didn't do it the first time, but I did it the second time. No summons, just went in there, wrecked
lightning.
shit.
Get that
You use
sword?
lightning attacks.
I used the gold pine resin. Yes, correct. Got the axe off the tail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then I was like, well, wow, the game's kind of opening up. I already rung one bell. We just go ring the other bell. It's not that far.
It's just around the corner. Like it's like
It's just
you
down
know,
Blighttown way.
in Rob
Go to
speak,
the
it's just a
depths.
couple of blocks away.
It's just a couple blocks away. Go
Square
to the
away.
depths. Fight the gaping dragon. Go down into Blighttown. I want to see how Blighttown looks on the Switch. You know? It's like you want to see the worst of the worst sometimes. God, I fucking hate Blighttown still to this fucking day. And I didn't even have to play through it. I could have not cheated. I could have used the master key to go the back way through the Valley of the Drakes, through New Londo. I could have done all that shit. I was like, I want to see it. I want to see Blighttown. Played through all Blighttown. Beat Quelaag. Easy. No big deal. First try.
Nice.
Boom. I think by then, I'm doing a faith build again. I did a faith build in Demon Souls. I was like, let me go back and do a faith build in Dark Souls 1. I didn't do that before. I did a Pyromancy build the first time. So let me do that, and I had the lightning, bolt spell. You throw lightning. And that made that fight very easy. And at that point, you've rung both bells. Let me fuck around a little bit. I did have almost a break point where, and I know I'm talking about this game as if everyone's played it and everyone knows all these things. I mean, the long and short is like, wow, Dark Souls holds up. All of these areas are super atmospheric. The way that it trains you to understand its kind of game design language while also remaining fundamentally obtuse about a lot of things is fascinating to this day. I think the bosses train you how to fight bosses, but what the game never teaches you about is like what poise is or how poise works, for instance. You really have to pay very close attention as to like, hey, why did this happen differently at this point? You know, why, or even the opposite, right? Which is like, why am I suddenly staggering? And I wasn't staggering these bat demons in Anor Londo until I changed my weapon. What happened there? And so yeah, I'm probably gonna finish this game now. There was one point where I almost quit, which is, do you remember how curse works in this game? And it's easier now than when it launched. There are these the basilisks, these like frogs with these big eyes, and they spit out like mist
Apparently
at you.
those aren't their eyes.
Oh, are they not their eyes? What are they?
I think that's where the gas
it's like a
comes
distraction.
from.
They're gas orbs.
Yeah,
sure.
Something. It's gross.
If you stand in the gas for too long, you instantly die, and it becomes like Demon Souls. You get half your health. And the only way to change that is to go buy a purging stone from a certain set of vendors who are far away from where I got cursed.
Right.
I got cursed in the hollow, the deep hollow, the like big. There's like a big tree you could go down to the Ash Lake where there's like an ancient Hydra and there's like a dragon statue down there. And I got stuck in that form at the ass end of Ash Lake because I forgot that there's no back way out of there. And I had to just run along this coastline, grinding against these crab enemies because I knew they could drop purging stones. They have like a 10% chance of dropping them. I must have killed 40 of those motherfuckers before they dropped one.
I remember.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I see the little eyes just above the teeth.
Yeah,
those are the eyes.
Those are the eyes.
And the orbs. I hate it.
Yep.
I hate looking at this motherfucker.
It's like a FedEx logo situation.
Right. Yeah, 100%. But man, this game is so good. It's so good. It's so good to get to Anor Londo. It's so good to play it again with some knowledge of like.
I thought you said. It's so good to honor Londo.
It's so good to honor Londo. Both Anor Londo and New Londo. I honor them both in my play.
So much reverence in the game. It's like, it's been such a delight to just honor Londo.
To honor Londo, with my name my firstborn Londo to honor Londo. Londo Calrissian. Put him in the game.
The fans have been saying for years. Where's my Star Wars DLC? Where's my Solo DLC?
It's one of those things where I think it speaks to the game that, one, I don't play old games. It's not a thing I do that often.
Right.
I don't find the time to play it and be compelled to keep playing it through the most like frustrating, again, through Blighttown, through the depths, through Sen's Fortress. Getting to Anor Londo really is a bright point in the game, like seeing it appear on the screen, the way it hits for the first time, the ways in which, and I know you're not a story person, here. But now knowing the story of this game and paying attention to the way the story is told through item descriptions and even through what your mission is, when you get to Honor Londo, it really does communicate this sense of like wonder that you're going into a realm of the gods. You're seeing all the statues of Gwyn and Gwyn's whole family. All of the pacing around getting to Darkroot Garden and Darkroot Basin, and the way the player has control over how hard the game is for themselves based on where they go and all that stuff. Rip to Sif, by the way, had to kill a wolf companion, but that's how it is sometimes, you know.
Like we're all cursed down here.
Exactly. And I think if I finish it, it will also be the first time that I play the DLC, because I've never played any of the DLC for these games.
Oh, it's a good.
They're all
DLC
supposed to be the best DLCs, is my understanding. All of the Dark Souls DLCs are fantastic, and I've never played any of them.
Oh,
so
I think I've played. I've played the DLC was out for one because it was the
when you
Prepare
played
to Die
it,
edition.
So Artorias of the Abyss. It's where you like go and meet Artorias. And
it's a really good fight too. Like one of the best fights in a Souls game. And I played. That's like why I replayed Dark Souls 2 to get to the Dark Souls 2 DLC.
The Scholar First Sin stuff.
Yeah, did one of them and then just didn't have time. And I did the,
well,
I did the stuff.
The other thing
I didn't particularly care for the DLC in
2.
3.
Oh, in 3.
2, I just ran out
Ring
of time.
City, and I know there's the wolf one in Dark Souls 3 where like the wolves follow you.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Anyway,
it was fine.
Yeah,
but the stuff in 1 is very good. So I'm excited for you to experience that.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, and we'll probably stick it out. Again, when I was at the ass end of the Ash Lake, being stuck cursed with half my health, I was almost like, and at that point I was back. Well, yeah. At one point, the thing there was like I could probably have fought my way back to a vendor and just bought the shit I needed, but I was like, I'm just gonna get them. I'm just gonna get it to drop from these crabs. Also, the crabs have like a 30 or 40% chance of dropping Twinkling Titanite, so I was just grinding the Titanite for the rare weapons, the named weapons. So like, there was a secondary reason for me doing that. But everything about this game makes me want to talk about the game in detail. Like it's potent in that way still. I'm not. What I will say is, like, playing this game, I can't say this because it's gonna make people yell at me about it. But it's like, I wish I was on a Dark Souls podcast. We're not starting a Dark Souls podcast. We don't have the time. We're not. But playing it is like I want to talk about this game in a fine-tooth comb sort of way. That's the sort of game it is. Where I wish I could make it's when I played this game, I was not part of communities talking about this game. I played Demon Souls and loved Demon Souls, and then played Dark Souls immediately, and it was like, oh yeah, I played that game. But by the time it like blew up, it was in that experience after that where it was kind of after the fact. And the first one I played along with the community was Dark Souls 2, and the community hated Dark Souls 2. So it was still a very solitary experience for me in many ways. And then I reviewed Dark Souls 3, and I played Bloodborne after everybody, and Sekiro I reviewed. So it's like I've never had the experience of playing a game, one of these games, along with the community in that way. And I feel it in my heart that like I've lacked part. I guess Demon Souls was the closest thing because I was playing it alongside a bunch of importers at the time who were super into it and explaining what mechanics were and how to get past certain bosses and stuff like that. But getting to go back and revisit this post-launch has been very fun, and a decade on, that game still holds up. So Dark Souls, I could vouch for the remastered version on Switch. It's not the best version of that game at this point, obviously, but it's really fun to play it portable. I think it runs really well portably. Like, nice. Patrick, if you ever want to check this game out, Cado also, Cado, you've played through Dark Souls 1, right?
Yeah, I didn't. You
didn't finish it.
I didn't finish it. I got. I had 2 bosses left, I think, when I had to.
Didn't link that fire?
Oh, you've 2 bosses left?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I was pretty far.
You got to wrap it. You got to go back
to that. I have to pull out the PS3.
Yeah. I will say, okay, wait. I do have an admission, which it's not an admission because I'm pro summoning. You know this about me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Max Kellerman, you know this about me. I'm pro summoning. However, it is a point of pride to get through Ornstein and Smo without summoning.
Yeah.
I did end up summoning this time.
But you're playing through it a second time. Like I feel like,
but also I wanted to do something I'd never done before, which is I wanted to kill Smoke first and get the Ornstein armor and stuff by letting Ornstein be the second one that you kill. And see upgraded Ornstein, because that's a harder fight. For people who don't know, there's a notorious boss fight. I think the Bell Gargoyles are the first truly, I guess the Capra Demon, the Bell Gargoyles are the first truly horrendous fight, right? Where you're like
Capra Demon could get
2-on-1
horrendous though.
Right, but I feel like the Gargoyles, by having two bosses, it is a moment in which the game is an early marker for like, do you still want to do this? Like, and if you get to that point and tap out, like no shame, like you've played enough of it to like wrap your head around like what is Dark Souls, what's appealing about it, and you can kind of move on with your life. But if you get through that and you go, oh hell yeah, like you're good, you can beat this game. Like the Gargoyles are a certain test that you'll be just fine. You know, you'll hit your difficulties, you'll have your challenges, but like you can beat Dark Souls if you can beat those two bosses.
That's on. Wait, is Capra Demon post Gargoyles?
I thought so. I thought Capra Demon
it is because you do upper Undead Burg, Undead Parish, then lower Undead Burg, then the Depths, then Blighttown. So yeah, they're before it anyway. So yeah, I think that's it. But then Ornstein and Smog, Smough. I've always said Smo. Is the other very notorious two character fight, two boss fight. One of them is kind of lithe and agile and has a lightning spear. The other one is a big lumbering executioner with a giant hammer. And whichever one you don't kill first powers up for the second half of the fight, recovers all their health, and becomes even more powerful, taking on characteristics of the other one, which is extremely funny because I think I'd probably mostly seen the one in which you kill Ornstein first, and then Smo like smashes him with a hammer to absorb all of his electricity power, all of his lightning power. Whereas I could not have called this to memory. When Smo dies first, Ornstein kneels over him and puts a hand on his chest like he's lost a fallen comrade, and it's like, bruh, Ornstein, he ain't gonna treat you like that. He's gonna hit you with a big hammer when you're a corpse. You don't have to give him all that. Anyway, he gains like height and strength. The story that I want to tell is I started summoning for it. I was like, I'm gonna try to do. I fought him a couple times. Fought them a couple times by myself first. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to get the Ornstein win. Let me try to summon. And I tried to summon, and immediately got. It was like, oh, there's a person named Moro here who I can summon. I'll summon Moro. And then it's like, that person didn't show up. And then it says, invaded by the dark spirit Moro. I'm like, oh, are you for real? This guy's putting his summon sign here, but then the second he gets summoned, he invades instead? Fuck off. Ugh. So I fought Moro 3 or 4 times. Won sometimes, lost sometimes. Eventually, other people were around that I could summon. At least twice, I'd summoned other people, and Moro had invaded us as a group, and tried to fight us there. Beat Moro that way. Finally, I almost got the win and got like the instant kill stab from Super Ornstein, where he lifts you up with the spear and lightning charges you when I was weak enough to get the kill or to get killed. And so I was like, fuck it. And I'm low on humanity at this point. And you need humanity to return from being hollowed so that you can summon. I was like, let me try one more time. And if this motherfucker Moro invades me one more time, I'm done. and Moro's sign was on the ground to summon him. And I was like, you know what? Let's see. We summon you. Summon. Moro comes through. What? And we both do like the shrug emote at each other. It's like we were like nemesis at this point. But you know what? Let's do it. So we ran in. Threat. Exactly. We've earned each other's respect through harsh rivalry in the halls of the Honorlando Cathedral. Went through, beat the shit out of Ornstein and Smo. Felt like, extremely strong in friendship, if not in strength itself. Shout outs to Moro if you're out there. I hope you aren't a shithead. Good luck, Genki people in the halls of and Cathedral of Honorlando. The fact that you had my back when it came down to it means a lot. So,
well, these
hope you're out there.
These games probably aren't cross-platform, right? So this is just someone just hanging out on the Switch, just
100%
doing ONS,
which is tough because I'm now at a point where it's like, oh, let me do the Gwendolyn Covenant, the Dark Moon Covenant. I've never done the Dark Moon Covenant, but to get the buff from it, again, I'm doing a faith build, and one of the best things that you can get for in a faith build is a weapon buff that you can use, the Dark Moon Blade, which gives it a huge buff. Gives your it's almost like having free pine resin or whatever that gives it that sort of like extra like magical damage boost. That's the best thing you could do as a Faith character. It's better than having a divine weapon because you get all the damage of just a regular strong weapon plus the Faith damage on top of it, that buff damage on top of it. But you need to earn 10 like currency inside of this covenant by invading sinners and killing them. And it's like, there aren't people to invade. I can't get, I'm not, who am I supposed to invade to get these points? Cado, I like that you just laughed like the Dark Souls NPC involuntarily.
Well, that's why the communities for around these games do annual sort of like a communal, like, hey, let's go, everyone get back in to make the games feel like they do around launch. I mean, that, I'm glad that From designs the games the way they do. I think it's it's a bummer that some of these things don't, or at least don't have like backstops. Like, hey, like in the event of no sinners, here's another way of doing it. So I'm gonna figure out like, hey, is there a particular time that people are playing every week on this console or what? Hey, we're going to do a Waypoint Plus stream where we need everyone to sign in and hang around this area so Austin can
invade them and grind my Dark Moon Blade Covenant. Yeah,
honestly, that would be
That sounds kind of fun. That sounds kind of fun. I'll see if my Elgato is going to start working because it wasn't the last time we checked. Yeah. Anyway, that game is still great. I would love to finish it. And I would really, if I finish it with momentum, I might just roll into Scholar of the First Sin and finally play that version of Dark Souls 2.
I'm a little surprised they haven't gotten around to porting the other ones. It seems like you could at least do Dark Souls 2 on Switch, probably. Yeah, fine.
3 feels like no, because Dark Souls 3 was...
That was PS4.
No.
That was PS4, right?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was PS4.
You could probably do it.
You could probably do it. In fact, here's some news. Dark Souls 3 now runs at 60 FPS on Xbox X and S, Series X and S. Thanks to FPS boost, which I want to see that. I bet it looks good.
What you could do is, get one of these. I don't have it down here. The Backbone, the thing for the iPhone. Like, it's tremendous, and they just added like native Game Pass support into the app. So, it's like super easy to just jump in, and that shit works. Like whatever latency, I don't think would impact your ability to play Dark Souls. Probably,
if there's ever an action RPG where it would probably be Dark Souls. But
I've played enough. Like actually, yes, like sure. If you want an excuse to blame your death, then sure, then you've got one built in. But I think you would probably, especially playing it for a second time, you'd probably be fine. And look, that stuff looks.
I haven't played that since launch either. Like it will be very interesting to play these two things back to back, especially given what I feel about Dark Souls 2.
Well, we don't plans have not been fully made, but if there is a game on the horizon,
sure is,
that will give us some excuses to do some things.
Can't wait for Elden Ring. Elden Ring is that game in my mind right now.
I'm ready to ring that bell.
I'm ready to ring that bell. I'm ready to summon the little pot boy, the little pot guy.
Don't say that with any sort of... He is my friend. He will be...
That's what I mean. Someone as a friend.
I'm ready to have a handicap where my little pot boys are with me for the entire game.
I will be able to summon... I guess we didn't do a roundup of things that came out about that game after E3. There were a bunch of interviews about that game.
It is not 100% confirmed that the pot boy season is
summonable.
About...
Right.
Is summonable.
But it has
all we know is that the enemies in the game... Some enemies can be summoned alongside
using those little cubes, we think.
Right. And using your cosmic cube. And that Miyazaki specifically said, and some will be useless. And so, not the way that we should be talking about my pot boy army.
Not useless. Deeply important for morale.
Yeah.
But this won't happen, but I would love it if these little enemies, these little summons also have deep skill trees and leveling up. I want my useless pot boy skill trees.
Sphere grid.
Can run slightly faster. Pot slightly less fragile.
Hides quicker. Hides more quickly.
It's less.
yells louder when danger approaches.
The pop was like a little like alarm, like a guard dog just letting you know.
Uh-oh. People who don't remember from the trailer for Elden Ring, there was a little like ceramic pot enemy who attacked, and we need to be able to summon that guy as our friend.
That is my friend.
That is
truly just a little guy, just a little guy in a pop. You know what's better than this? Guys being pops.
I live here now.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, that's the big thing. And then really quickly, I do just want to say, Ender Lilies. That game's good. I'm only 3 hours in, maybe. I've locked a bunch of those spirits. We talked about it in the previous episode. You can go back and listen to that. 2D Metroidvania with very deliberate combat, where you're beating bosses and then turning them into kind of spirits you can summon, like JoJo stands to fight as your weapons. It's very cool. I think that the lore in that world is pretty cool too. Mm-hmm. There's like the way you're unpacking kind of what happened to this place. I don't think it's as good as like Hollow Knight, but if you have a Hollow Knight itch, this game will help scratch that a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's not, and I and I think it's a good one of those. Sometimes I will play a game like that that's like, but it's fine. Like this is just what I know what I'm here for.
I just need this right now.
But this is I think a really well made one of those. I like put it to the side because I knew I was going to get consumed by it. So now I'm like finishing off like Mario Golf and there's some other games I've been playing.
Can we get a Mario Golf update from you?
I think I believe I'll just recap the conversation we had pre-pod, which is that I think the story mode, adventure mode, is awful and is really just a very long, boring tutorial. Yeah, and I think it sounds like I'm gonna pivot to Cado.
Yeah,
because he sounds like he's playing the game differently.
Yeah,
does a disservice to a game that I think, and I said this in the previous podcast, I think mechanically is a joy to play and has a lot of really fun. It makes a lot of really advanced mechanics of golf and golfing like fun to goof, like the fact that I'm like lining up a shot, doing a double tap for like a turbo backspin, but then also holding left on the analog stick in the second wave to like just not fully 10 left. I want it like one arrow to the left in each of the different, like all that stuff is very approachable and fun and good. And I just don't like the structure they have at all in adventure mode. And so I'm curious, Cado, you said you've been having a better time with it. So I'm curious how you're playing it.
Yeah. So I was home in Florida seeing my family over our break. I took an extra couple days actually. And usually when I head home, I bring my Switch with me and we like play Smash Brothers or I have 4 siblings. I'm the oldest. They're all younger than me. So we all play video games to a certain degree. And this time around, I ended up picking this up because they were kind of smashed out. Like they haven't played it in a while. They're like, is there something new, some new party game or sports game that we can get for your Switch? And I was like, you know what? Let's try this. And we basically ignored adventure mode because we're playing multiplayer. We went through there's a tutorial on the main menu that is just a bunch of screens that tell you everything about the game. And so we read through that together and then we had a blast playing regular golf. Like just like without the speed, not the speed golf or even the battle golf, just regular golf. And there's enough in there that it actually like it works. Like the amount of like, what angle your ball is resting on when you go to hit it will curve your shot. Things like small details like that of like where like you unlock clubs where you can you can put in multiple amount like different levels of spin on different parts of the arc of the ball, which is really fun. So like for example, if you're like looking at a tree, you can like super curve it to the right on the first like path so that it goes around it and then super curve it back to the left so it goes back on its original path basically. And like it feels like a really good arcadey golf game with like enough of like, oh, I have to care about the different angle that this ball is gonna hit the ground. Like, oh, I can kind of gauge like the elevation, like the things. It's like not so arcadey that you're just whacking the ball as hard as you can, but also not so simmy that you can't do this crazy curve around a tree, right? It's this perfect kind of middle area that a lot of Mario sports games end up being in, where it's like, you know, we're going to take a lot of the real world things that you do in the sports game, but also give you like magic powers on top of that, like on top of it. That makes it really interesting.
Yeah.
And like hearing you all talk about how the speed golf like kind of feels a little weird just because you don't watch the shot, you don't see where it lands. Like,
yeah,
totally. We played it, and then as a regular sports game, it's actually really satisfying to see. There's like on the bar, for example, the power bar at the very top of it. There's a section where if you hit it at full power, there's a chance that it'll shift left or right, and it's not a huge shift, but it's like really exciting to watch your ball kind of go, and you're like, I'm a little too far left. But then the accidental shift kind of leans it back left towards the hole, like small.
Isn't that called chaos? I believe like that's actually, I think it's called chaos is like the term in the game.
It's just like literally depending on what if you're like in a bunker, for example, the quote unquote safe zone where it will go where you tell it to is tiny, and like you won't be able to get out of the bunker with that. You're just kind of leaving it up to chance at a certain point, but it's like a fun element of like, okay, I'm gonna hope it curves to the left, so I'm gonna curve. I'm gonna put a spin to the right a little bit to correct for that. And there's a lot of nuance in there when you're just playing it as regular golf that comes through when you're watching the ball travel. Like you see the wind kind of push it a little bit. You see your curve kind of kick in at the end, or things like that. That is really, really fun. The speed thing kind of like kills all that because you don't watch the arc, and then you're running, and like that has its own like different mechanics that it adds on top of that. We like didn't really we were just there for the golf, right? Oh, there's like a good golf game under there.
That sounds like the at the dour, the end of the act 2, turn where everything seems terrible in the movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
We were just there for the golf, and everyone goes their separate ways. Remember when we were? This is just about the golf.
It was just about the golf. Now it's
how do we get here?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of fun doing that multiplayer.
I think the issue that Austin and I have, which is you're playing with a human, which sounds great.
Sounds fantastic. What's that?
And like I don't that will never be
right.
Like it, like I could play with Austin, right? Like I could, I guess,
we should.
And we should. But
even
like outside of that, what I'm saying is the reason the adventure mode is so much more profoundly disappointing is because knowing that I will have very limited opportunities to play with other people.
Right.
What I want is the structure of the story, adventure mode, RPG mode, whatever, to fill in that gap in which like the objectives that I'm chasing, the basically that structure is what I want out of the human element that I can't get, and it doesn't exist. Like it's just not.
No.
Think about it like Dark Souls. I had a rivalry with Moro, the person, but even if I didn't have that, I would have still had the great fight against Ornstein and Smo and that whole arc. Whereas if Patrick and I play this once together, that's like playing a board game with someone once. It's great. It's fine. But like, was it worth the $60? Like, probably not.
No, that's the thing. And like, I popped it open before we played together just to see what the like courses and stuff was. And I ended up unlocking all the courses over the course of 3 hours of just playing all 18 holes by myself as a regular golf game. Again, like just playing against CPU, playing a regular, and like the challenge there just becomes like, how well can you get under par? Like the normal challenge of golf. Right. And that was really, really fun, but it was only like 3 hours before I had unlocked all of the courses. And you can go through and unlock a special golf set for each character that allows them to hit harder and gives you I believe in the adventure mode, this is a stat, but in like regular play, this is just an unlock where the power bar that fills up and you have to hit at the top to gauge how hard you're hitting it has different segments that you can add different amounts of spin to. In multiplayer, that's just one segment. Like you can't really control it unless you go through and unlock a club set that you pick on the on the character collection, and then it's like every club has 3 segments, and you can play through. But I only unlocked that for one character, so I didn't use it that much because it was kind of an unfair advantage over everyone else playing with the base sets. But so like you could go through and do that solo, and I don't know, like that was kind of fun. But you're right that if you're only ever gonna play it alone, that's probably not enough to justify the $60 thing. Because it's like, yeah, all the courses unlocked in 3 hours, and then like I don't know that I'll go through and unlock the club sets for everyone. There's too many characters to do that with, and
well, they're supposed
I found
to
the
add,
character that I liked. I like that's the thing is like I found the one that has the right amount of control, and like it's actually Peach. She's great. There's like a kind of a middle ground there of like enough control that I can add a good amount of spin and stuff, but not and enough power that it doesn't feel like I'm way behind everyone else.
Right. Well, that's Mario Golf. That's Mario, isn't it? That's kind of it for Mario Golf.
Mario.
Anyone else want to shout anything out before we wrap up here?
I don't.
All right, let's take it to the end. I'm tired. I have a long day. I got to prep for a podcast.
Yeah.
I think I'm recording another Friends of the Table recording today. I just did I have 4 hours of Friends of the Table last night.
Damn.
Because of scheduling. And it looks like I'm now going to go again in like 3 hours. So it's like, got to put on my GM hat. Got to get that energy going for it. Got to eat lunch between now and then at some point. So yeah, woo. Welcome to Friends of the Table. To get that same energy that I had or at the beginning of this podcast.
Right.
For that one. We'll be back next week with some more stuff. We get some Waypoint Plus stuff coming. We're recording something tomorrow. I guess it's worth saying we're recording a Be Good and Rewatch It. We should change that name.
Yeah,
it's not its own feed anymore.
Right.
It's a
feature now in the feed.
It's a feature inside of the feed, and I feel like it needs something else. We'll sit on it. We'll think about it. But No Sudden Move. No sudden move, right?
Move.
Not no sudden move. Single move.
No sudden move.
The Steven Soderbergh heist film that just dropped on streaming. I believe it's on HBO Max.
It is.
So look forward to that coming up. We're going to record that tomorrow. And then
probably for release next Wednesday. So look on
that sounds good.
Yeah.
And then speaking of stuff, I guess the day this comes out, y'all are also going to do some more Resident Evil 1 streaming.
Yeah, we're gonna do
with the Puzzle Master. Puzzle Master couldn't be here today.
He's busy studying up on his sword keys and his
rubies.
He's like, who's Lisa? So we're gonna do one more of those at least. We're gonna see how it goes.
Yeah.
I would say I think we had a surprising amount of fun with the first one.
Yeah,
of me having that kind of. Me being a bit of a dungeon master for Rob's Resident Evil.
That's fun.
Well, trying to figure out like how do I, as someone who has played the game before, doesn't want to set him on the easy path, but also am trying to like sand off some of the edges so that we like keep moving forward, and so you can experience what Resident Evil is without necessarily having to go through that all of that, and that was a lot of fun. And he's not going to listen to this before we do the stream, but I just need him to see a Crimson Zombie before we stop streaming.
Please.
If you watch the first stream, people were putting too much, thinking I was trolling him too like on purpose all the time, which is not true. That's just my fuzzy memory.
Those are your memory. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it is also true that I was like stringing him along. Like in the most specific case of that is the Crimson Zombie. If you've not played the Resident Evil remake from years back, traditionally in the original Resident Evil, when you defeated a zombie, they bleed out on the floor and they're gone. In fact, actually, I think the bodies disappear from the environment when you come back into the room. I might be wrong on that. And in the remake, I forget exactly. It might be, I don't know if it's every zombie or it's certain zombies. I forget exactly how the mechanic works, but basically they can come back, will come back alive as these red screaming zombies that will like chase you down a hallway. It's fucking horrifying. It sucks. It's like one of the most brilliant changes in that remake. And we had gotten to the point in the stream where Rob had encountered, he'd gotten a lighter and access to a tank of gasoline. And he hasn't, like, he has the equipment, but the game hasn't explained. The game's hinted at it, but hasn't made it explicit what is going to happen with the zombies. Like,
Also,
he read a memo that said, like, hey, you should burn them.
Yeah, there's assumptions you can also make just from general, like, cultural osmosis of zombie fiction. You burn the bodies. You burn the bodies.
But it is true that the game has not communicated how the mechanic works yet. He, from Rob's perspective, I believe where he is at currently is, the game will explain it to me. And it will, in the form of a Crimson Zombie coming back and scaring the shit out of him. So we're at least going to we will get to that point in the next stream. I think we were not far off, and we had some technical difficulties that we have since worked out, that Rob just has a cursed USB slot on his monitor. So when Cado realized he was plugging things into his monitor.
Very funny.
I think Cado was like an equivalent of like ripping his headset off and like throwing it at a wall. It was just like, take that shit out! Yeah. Don't plug these into your monitor!
I swear this has happened before too. I have this like the slightest memory of like, I think we went through this with the last computer, and it's like, why are you having the same issues? Oh, right, the USB hub on that monitor is fucking broken.
Yeah, and the moment he stopped using that, everything was like completely perfect.
Yep, it's fine.
So they're you know, we had been talking about doing the Waypoint Rental was as like a monthly thing, but if we are having fun with this stream and we just want Rob to play all of Resident Evil, there's a world where we shift the schedule to a degree that we just like keep playing, and we would probably increase the frequency of those streams. Like Rob and I would not just do it every Friday for 3 months,
6 months
like,
or whatever.
Like I mean, it's a it's like an 8 to 10 hour game. I think
you could knock it out.
So I think there's, you know, if people are having fun, if we're still having fun, we might just start doing that with some more frequency. That wouldn't take away from Tactile Tuesdays and stuff like that. That would just be in addition while we were playing through that.
Part of the reason I thought about this and we talked about this was we finished our XCOM 2 War of the Chosen run this week on Tactical Tuesdays. For people who maybe haven't watched all of that, or who was going to wait until it's done. It's done. Cado, I'm guessing it'll be up on the YouTube by mid next week or something like that.
Waypoint fans from 2017 that fell off, come back.
Yeah, on the YouTube. Yeah,
it should be up when you're listening to this podcast.
Awesome, great, love that. I think we probably need to go in and clean up that playlist, because I don't know the playlist has everything. I don't think the playlist
is updated. I have to. Yeah, that is a thing.
So you might have to dig through and find some of them.
But they are all technically there somewhere,
including the ones that were part of save points or 8-hour streams or whatever.
Right,
they're out there somewhere. But that's done, and wrapping that felt so good. The thing of like, hey, you can watch us play XCOM 2 front to back on this website over 3 years. It is wild. That started at the end of 2017. It is now the middle of 2021. Over 3 years of time for that thing.
Damn.
Felt so good, and the idea of like, here's a complete run of it just feels so good that I would love to be able to be like, go back and watch you and Rob play through Resident Evil 1 remake whenever I want to. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If you by the end of this next one you're not having fun, and then kill it. You know, who cares?
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. We're definitely playing with that idea, so we'll have to see how it goes. So if the puzzle master keeps puzzling, I'll keep watching. God.
Exactly.
God damn it. Go, if you don't know what that is, go check my Twitter timeline.
Please
I've
check
retweeted some of them.
Please.
They're extremely good.
The puzzle master. It's so good. So yeah, shout out to everyone who's made this possible. As a reminder, the only reason we're able to stream is because we started Waypoint Plus a little over a month ago at this point, and it's been a success, which is exciting. And if you want to help us continue to succeed in that way, waypointplus.com is the address. Easy to go to, easy to subscribe. There are now annual memberships. You can go to waypoint.zone/carrot, CARROT, for, I think is that for gifting? That's for gifting someone a yearly subscription. Waypoint.zone/annual if you want to buy an annual subscription for yourself out the gate. You can also just go into your account and make it an annual subscription if that's easier for you. And we have more stuff coming up, so look forward to all that. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Austin_Walker. Where can people find you, Patrick?
At Patrick Lubbock.
Cado.
At @A_Cado_appears.
Follow everything we do. Twitter.com/Waypoint, Waypoint.vice.com, YouTube.com/WaypointVice, Twitch.tv/Waypoint. As always, again, Waypoint Plus, and thank you to Bowen for letting us use the track Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. We'll be back next week with more. Until then, fuck capitalism, go home. Peace.
I've played 40 minutes of Boomerang X this morning.
I will give you
yeah.
Cado and I will will you the power, the sheer the velocity of Boomerang X into your heart. What a good fucking game. Mario Golf, which I think maybe
Mario
sucks.
Golf.
How far?
What?
Well, we'll talk. I almost said yeah.
I'm in the desert area.
I think that's where I am now too. I haven't played more though.
I played that game in a very different way than y'all are playing it, and I'm enjoying it.
Oh, good. Nice. Yes. Like not without burning pot. I think the story mode sucks. Is really my takeaway.
Right. That is also what I feel.
Adventure mode. They didn't call it a story mode because there ain't no goddamn story.
There's no. Yeah, it's bad.
Monster Hunter. Did you play
Monster
it on
Hunter,
PC?
Monster Hunter Rise
Stories. I played a bit, but not a ton. Like an hour or something.
But that's okay, because the thing I want to say about it is going to be, wow, what nice presentation this game has. This game's attack animations are really nice. And that's about all I can say about it.
Right.
Anyway.
I'll say I'm probably like more jealous of the way Cado is playing it than on a Switch.
Interesting.
I started playing the demo on Switch. And I was like, oh, hey,
just
these frames.
Your progress, right? Oh, yeah, but okay, we'll talk about it.
We'll get there.
Okay,
that's it.
I think that's a podcast.
Yeah, and we should talk about we
should talk about the
Switch,
Nintendo.
Yeah, we'll structure that in. Let's do that with Monster Hunter. Like let's put there's a way because it actually it ties into Boomerang X. I'll make a reference there. But we can push that switch.
Wait. Do we have an all? This is an all Switch showcase, baby, because I've been playing Dark Souls on Switch also.
Great.
And I've been playing Ender Lilies on Switch, which does get framey in points.
Yeah. All right.
So the theme
welcome
through.
to the Switchcourse.
Yeah.
God damn it.
July 9th.
That might be the podcast
title.
That's how it goes sometimes, isn't it? Let me adjust.
Prepare to Switchcourse edition.
Yeah. Okay. Time dot is 30.
Hold on. Oh.
You're not there.
God damn it.
You're not there.
Got it.
You're not
Boom.
there. You're not there.
Boom.
I didn't clap. I couldn't see you, so I couldn't tell if you were there. 40.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Oh,
I did it.
45. 45. I'm glad you got there.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right.